You don't have to figure statement, do you? Okay. All right. You're on? Okay. All right. Good evening. If we can have everyone's attention, please. Thank you very much. If you can't hear me on the Zoom meeting, please let us know by putting in a message in the chat, and we'll try and take care of that if we can. So my name is John Blowers, and I'm Vice Chair of the Board of Supervisors in East Lampeter Township. I want to thank everybody for coming. Good to see you. Our consultant team up front, so we can introduce introductions in just a moment if we can. So thank you very much, Tara. Wonderful turnout. Thank you so much, Ralph. Staff support, the staff member. Colin is our newest staff member at East Lampeter Township, going to be coming into the space and spending a lot of time in this space. So thank you all for participating. Thank you all for being here tonight. We have been, obviously because of COVID, we've been taught to handle things in a whole different way than we did just a year and a half ago or so. And the staff has done an excellent job of accommodating the needs of the Board of Supervisors, the Planning Commission, Parks, Zoning. So we've been doing a lot of Zoom, as you can imagine. If you're here tonight, obviously you have come into the space, so we've repurposed everything and brought everything back together and made it a lot closer than it was. So a different space than it was even just a month ago. So thank you all for helping your support. So we have representatives of Lancaster Township, Lancaster City, West Lampeter, East Lampeter, LCPD. Yes, okay. I would call it LCPC, but I can't get it. I'm not allowed anymore to do that stuff. I was on there in '97. And then we had members of our consultancy. So, Tara, anybody on the Zoom call that needs to be introduced? Anyone that was key part of the steering committee?
Cindy McCormick is with us by Zoom, and Steve Campbell is here in the meeting room, both from the city. And then we have Amanda Hickman from West Lampeter and Ben Weber from Lancaster Township.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Everyone else just interested parties? Interested neighbors? Interested residents of Bridgeport? Wow. Fantastic. Well, there's a meeting here 2 times a month, so if you want to show up, we would appreciate an audience. So, we vote on things and generally be talking to ourselves. So thank you very much. Okay, so I think Ed Grayball's on here as well too from the LNP. I think I saw his name up there as well too. So thank you all very much. Thank you for your participation in this. This was not solely East Lampeter. We're hosting the meeting tonight, but this is everybody who participated. So thank everyone for stepping forward. I can't remember when we did our first walking tour of Bridgeport, and I honestly, it might have been 2000. Okay, 14. I'm guessing. I had been on the board for 2 years, and we gathered a group with an individual. I don't know who that was. I know it's going to put you on the spot. Anyway, he walked us through there, and we started, I think, maybe across the bridge over at the Consulate restaurant, and we walked across, and we got to Bridgeport on the other side, and went over to Weiss, and sort of envisioned what this little portion of our communities could look like if we repurposed some things and perhaps sought some dollars from the state for some projects that they would do anyway, and what would happen if we suggested more strategic vision for this. So Didi happens to live very close to that area, but Didi's also West Lampeter's manager. Ralph lives in Upper Lake Cock, and he works for our community for 30 years. So we've got folks that do this as a profession, but also live right here. We're all part of this little crossroads community that for a lot of folks in the county, if you don't live right there, you may not know that there's a border of 5 different municipalities, 40 municipalities. Okay. And so, those four municipalities come together, and obviously the county has a very strong interest in what happens there as well. But it is the metro area. And I started using that term when I came on the Board of Supervisors in 2012. And I used to get sort of, wide open look, we don't have a metro area in Lancaster County. What are you talking about? I'd say, well, there's about 350,000 people that live in that metro area. So it's a metro area. And that crossroads is really a very unique space because four municipalities come together and there's a tremendous amount of activity that occurs in that space. So I was thrilled to see that we were going to bring this together and we were going to do this as a multi-municipal effort and thrilled to have the consultants on board. And so those who participated in the steering committee over the past number of years, thank you very much. Citizens who hadn't been tracking it closely, you're going to hear quite a bit here tonight about what we're looking at. Ideas, conversation, I guess, will come up at a time for some public comment. Is that correct?
We'll have public comment directed to the email.
Okay, so follow-up comments to the email address. Okay. All right. Anything else? Good. Good. Great. You want to introduce yourselves? Thank you.
Will do. Good evening, everyone. My name is Mark Evans. I'm the project manager for the Bridgeport study, and I'm also the director of planning for Dirk and Edson, their planners and designers from Lids. Tonight, we are here to present the final recommendations for the Bridgeport Transportation and Land Use Study. It's been a lot of hard work by a lot of really good people, and I want to introduce a few of them before we get started. I'm joined by my colleagues, Steve Hackett to my right, and in the audience, I believe it's Bob Schenk, who worked many years on the project, as well as to my left, Ryan Hostetter. Ryan is the Transportation Group Manager for Herbert Roland and Rubik, as well as Jacob Long to his left, who's been doing a lot of the heavy lifting throughout the project. So our project consultant team consists of Dirk and Edson, Herbert Roland and Rubik, as well as Town Planning Partnership. And we've been conducting Bridgeport Transportation and Land Use Study since 2017. Multi-year effort. COVID gave us some twists and turns. Oops, I'll try this. You almost have the whole thing. How about that? Is that better? Okay. Planning study has been a collaboration, as you had mentioned, John, between four different municipalities, East Lampeter, West Lampeter, Lancaster Township, as well as the city of Lancaster. And so we've also had the support of the County of Lancaster as well as PennDOT. So it's been a multi-organizational support to get to this point. And I'd like to also acknowledge the steering committee members. I think for those of you in the room, I think John, you mentioned a few of them, but certainly we have Tara Hitchens from East Lampeter, Amanda Hickman from West Lampeter, Steve Campbell and Cindy McCormick, Ben Weber from Lancaster Township, Leona Barr from PennDOT, Bob Beanie and Lori Alskog from Lancaster County Planning Department. So a team effort. And as you see, Tara, can you put, or we have screen on? So, and so as you will see here, but the remote is not working this second. Maybe the door might be an issue. Sorry about that. Our remote control is not happy right now. Our remote will get happy.
There you go, Mark. There you go.
Thank you for your patience. Okay, we actually have the remote working. Thank you. We're good now. So there are the various consultant team members and steering committee members. And here's the project study area. And so representatives from each of those organizations have formed a steering committee in 2017. And so the map you see on the screen here is really represents the full study area. And so the study area includes to the west, Broad Street, to the north is the Amtrak Railroad, to the east is US Route 30, and to the south is Millport Road. And so that generally defines what we know of as Millport. This is a sort of, and so the focus of this project has really been on a planning initiative to enhance walkability and transportation and transit choices, as well as to enhance neighborhood character within the Bridgeport area. It's about 3.2 square miles. And so, this is really in many of the focus, you see that circle there, the key intersection that we all have felt the pain of trying to get through at rush hour or at most any other time of day, is really where King Street and Lincoln Highway, Old Philadelphia Pike, Pitney Road, and Lampeter Road come together in sometimes a very slow and painful way of getting through the intersection. So we believe that this effort is really one not only to look at transportation, but to look at land use and look at them together as one whole, and really to focus on how we can make Bridgeport come together as a better place, not just solving one transportation item or one sidewalk item here or there. And so the vision and the focus of this effort is really in 4 areas. We've had a great deal of extensive community input to get to this point. And so from that community input, and we'll talk about that in a bit, the steering committee asked us to focus on 4 things at a high level. First off, to make sure that we have a more walkable community in Bridgeport. Second, to make sure that we enhance the character of the neighborhoods. Third, to provide greater transportation choices. And fourth, to improve the traffic flow, especially at the Bridgeport Crossroads intersection. So that is the focus. And currently, many of these roadways are experiencing traffic congestion, and there's a number of incomplete sidewalks where we have a sidewalk for 100 feet and then a gap of 20 feet, a sidewalk for another 100 feet and a gap of 100 feet. So we really recognize that for people to walk, shop, dine, get to their neighborhood, get to the river, get to recreation, it's really difficult to get there now, and we'll delve into that in a little bit more detail. And so the project goals that we have agreed to are number 1, to create safer and more walkable streets, to identify opportunities to reduce congestion and enhance roadway connectivity, to enhance bikeways, trails, sidewalks, crosswalks, and access to schools, neighborhood, and recreation areas, to improve access to public transportation, and to create more vibrant places within the Bridgeport area. And so those are the goals that we've agreed to, and we've been working hard to reach and sort of find strategies and specific recommendations to make that happen. To get there, we needed to build upon a lot of good work of the planning work that's happened ahead of us. And so we've taken a look at both Bridgeport's history. It has a rich history that we were all fascinated to get to know more about. We also looked at zoning. We looked at the conditions of the existing roadways and a lot of other planning issues as well. As a crossroads, this is an important crossing of the Conestoga River. It dates back to the late 1700s, back when the King's Highway was an important connection between Philadelphia and Lancaster. And clearly, this has been an important farm to market route to get from the city of Lancaster to many of the townships, including the one we're in. The original bridge began as a wooden bridge and was later a stone bridge called the Whitmer Bridge. And it was built with a toll gate that collected fees when you crossed the bridge. And so as commerce increased, the area grew in importance. Residents from the area began to travel up and down the Conestoga River by steamboat, by trolley, and by various boating. It turns out there was a number of picnic groves, and people were swimming in the river, and the Rocky Springs Amusement Park was an important destination. And so that trolley you see on the bottom right-hand corner, there were not just one trolley line, there were 2 trolley lines going to Bridgeport. And so they connected along King Street from the city downtown area of Lancaster, as well as a trolley that ran directly to the amusement park itself. And so the reason that we know of Bridgeport today is because everyone recognized that on the water, on the road, and on the trolleys, this was a port. This was a place, a port at the bridge. So Bridgeport is how it got its name from these important history. And I think it's important that we tie this together to any future investment to make sure that we recognize the importance of this place. However, there are 4 municipalities, each with their own independent ability to set zoning, to set transportation policy, to connect sidewalks. And it's been hard for 4 different municipalities, and the way that they come together, it's not easy to sort of coordinate that when you have 4 different governments trying to work to support the needs of each community. And so the zoning is a wide variety of different zoning areas. In some cases, there's a minimum front yard of 10 feet, whereas 100 feet away, there may be a minimum front yard of 50 feet. And so as you drive through Bridgeport or walk through Bridgeport, it may be hard to feel a sense of place because we have a lot of different zoning standards throughout the community. And so I think one of the goals is to figure out how to bring together zoning and standards that create a place. And part of that will include looking at the buildings, the civic spaces, the street trees, and parking lots, and ways in which all those can come together as one place. I'm going to turn it over to Ryan Hostetter, who's going to talk a little bit more about the existing conditions of the roadways. And so Ryan.
Thanks, Mark. As everybody can imagine is familiar with the Bridgeport area, the roadways within the Bridgeport area are very significant roadways. With Whitney Road carrying 11 or 10,000 vehicles a day as being the smallest of the roads, and King Street carrying 22,000 vehicles a day being the largest. If you add them all up, there's about 75,000 vehicles per day coming through this intersection. So it's really no wonder why we have congestion issues and a transportation issue here that needs attention. Looking with mobility, existing sidewalks, shoulders within the Bridgeport area are rather deficient. There are some sidewalks on King Street tying into the Wise Market Plaza, and then there's a few other sparsely placed sidewalks, probably with more recent developments that are located throughout the area. However, there's very little connectivity and really no place for pedestrians to be within the Bridgeport area. Crash history and safety issues. We do have some crash history or data on Lincoln Highway, which primarily focuses on side swipes and some head-ons, which you can imagine with the cross-section of Lincoln Highway being so wide open and heavily traveled. There are some rear-end collisions, which are typical with heavily queued areas with backed up traffic signals and whatnot, and there are turning movement accidents, which are very typical with very turning movements on heavy traffic. So that's some of what we've seen and taken into consideration as part of our evaluation for the traffic needs and overall safety improvements. Going down a little farther, the intersection with Pitney, Lampeter, Philadelphia, Old Philadelphia, and King Street is the focal point, and the center critical mass, I should say, for really all 75,000 vehicles that traverse through the Bridgeport area on any given day. There is a severe lack of sidewalks, which we mentioned.
And Ryan, those are just for the benefit of the public, those lack of sidewalks are highlighted in red. And so you can see that most areas along these corridors don't have sidewalks. And so that was something we took note of pretty early on.
So what you can see here is that the level of service at Lincoln, Lampeter, and Pitney is currently a level of service which is, equates to about 53 seconds of delay average of travel through the intersection. For perspective, the best level of service is an A, and that would be 10 seconds or less. And then it goes down to an F, which is 50 seconds. Traffic design terminology, gives you perspective as to where we're at. So with these types of delays, you can expect that there are people looking for alternate routes, and notice that there's cut-through routes, particularly between Lincoln Highway and Lampeter Road, which are highlighted on the map, utilizing Plymouth, Clayton Avenue, Reese, Tennyson Drive, Whiker Avenue, which creates a situation where we have vehicles traveling through residential neighborhoods, trying to make time. So obviously we're trying faster, creating unsafe conditions. That's something. Sorry. And then with the sidewalks, there's also a lack of trail connectivity. So there's just overall within the Bridgeport area, we need pedestrian mobility, trail connectivity, and connectivity to the businesses and destinations within Bridgeport. So I can pass it back to Mark.
The next slide here, sorry. Well, while the slide moves forward, I'll tell you where we're heading next. We're about to get to the recommendations. And so the recommendations really cover both, we want to talk a little bit about the community input and the extent of that community input briefly. We'll also talk about the transportation recommendations as well as the land use recommendations. And so when it comes to the community input, we have engaged about 810 respondents to various surveys. We have conducted 3 public meetings, 5 focus group meetings, 3 online surveys, and many of those surveys were also done in paper surveys as well, so that we had an alternate for an in-person survey as well as an online survey. We've had 10 project steering committee meetings, and overall, this entire process has been documented on the website called bridgeportcrossroads.org. And so there's an extensive amount of information available that was available to everyone throughout the process, and a variety of emails, newsletters, flyers, and different ways of people to be involved in the process. And so all of that input is included in the recommendations of our report. I have a copy of it here, but this will be available on all the different municipal websites in the next couple days. This is a 95-page report that includes in greater detail what you're hearing tonight. And so the focus of the recommendations begin with looking at streets to make sure they're designed for all modes of transportation. Walking and bicycles, buggies, transit, cars, and trucks. Trails to make sure that we're connecting Bridgeport along the Conestoga River to many of the nearby destinations. Other key priorities focused on traffic calming and making sure that we have slow traffic within neighborhoods. There's way too much cut-through traffic in what are single-family neighborhoods that are having a lot of cut-through traffic. And so HRD went to a great deal of effort to even document where a lot of that cut-through traffic was occurring. And then zoning and architectural standards as well. So those are the breadth of the recommendations. And so some of the images that you see here really capture kind of the range of issues that we are recommending moving forward. Everything from enhancing, the image on the left shows enhancements to Lincoln Highway to make it into a more pedestrian, bicycle, and landscape-friendly environment. Notice the sidewalk on the right, the trails on the left along the Conestoga, streets with sidewalks and storefronts, not just parking lots facing the street, as well as crosswalks where we can make sure that there are safe ways for people to get across the street. And so this is a map that highlights a number of our recommendations, and we'll stay on this map for just a moment to highlight, for starters, all of those green arrows highlight the civic destinations that we're trying to connect to. To the south, there's the Lancaster County Central Park. To the west, we have the oxbow of the Conestoga River and the Conestoga River Trail. To the north and west, we have Burroughs Elementary School. To the north, we have Conestoga Pines Pool. At the center, the Bridgeport Crossroads Commercial Center. And to the east, we have the Lafayette Tower Park. And so those are just some examples of some of the places we want to make sure that if you live, if you recreate, if you are in this area, that you can connect to those locations. And then you see in purple here, there are a number of existing trails to the west, closer to the Lancaster Township. There are a number of existing trails, but there's a need for further recreational trails to tie together these communities and these neighborhoods. And so a lot of public input, we identified alternative locations as to where trails could go, and fairly resoundingly people said, put the trails along the river, rediscover the river, connect to the river. And so to the north of the Conestoga River, actually to the north of King Street Bridge, the trail would run along the western edge. So that would be along North Conestoga, whereas to the south, it would run on the east side of the Conestoga River and connect down to the park. And so other examples of enhancements would be sidewalk enhancements. So in orange, you can see some dotted lines there where enhancements to sidewalks on King Street, Old Philadelphia Pike, Lincoln Highway, and City Middle are other examples where sidewalk enhancements are recommended to connect to critical destinations. And then in the pinkish red color there is the existing bike route that runs through the community, and we want to make sure that biking is encouraged as well. And so there's a number of bike route locations through the community. And then as we look at those dark blue colors, those are areas where we have existing employment centers, existing commercial of a mature commercial. And those light blue areas are areas where there may be aging buildings, where there's opportunities for regeneration, opportunities for aging buildings to be reinvested in and to connect together all of these commercial and neighborhood areas into a more walkable destination, a more one with greater continuity. But to get there, many of you expressed strong concerns about the quality of life of cut-through traffic. And so to make sure that, as people invest and improve their commercial properties, let's make sure that the neighborhoods are safe at the same time. And so traffic calming, and Ryan will talk a little bit more about, but you see in blue there a number of the locations where along Tennyson Drive and Longfellow Drive, Weicker Avenue, and Buttercup Road, that traffic calming will be a high priority to make sure that we improve quality and walkability and reduce the traffic speeds on those streets. So this is a map here that highlights the examples of the trail running north along the west side of the Conestoga. Yellow, shown in yellow there. And this is the map that shows the Conestoga River and its oxbow to the south. And then you can see in red the existing river trail that runs all the way from from Duke Street all the way up to the vicinity of City Mill. And so the area you see in green there are examples of where the proposed improvements. Remote is unhappy once again. There we go. And so in green, you can see some areas where the trail, the future trail, would connect together at Lampeter Road, at Peony Road, at Millport Road, at Duke Street, and to the south at Lancaster County Central Park. And so connecting that trail into neighborhood destinations is a high priority. And I'm going to shift over to Ryan to talk a little bit more about traffic calming in the neighborhood.
Thanks, Mark. As we had mentioned a few times previously, there was 4 roads. Closer. There's 4 roads that we targeted based on what we saw as far as cut-throughs. Lincoln and Lampeter being Tennyson Drive, Longfellow Drive, Wicker Ave, and Buttercup Road. I'm holding it right in my face.
Actually, Ryan, your voice is only projecting there through your mic. For here, it's
Oh,
you'll
okay.
have to just speak up louder.
Sorry, I need to work on
There
it.
you go. That was it, Ryan.
All right. So kind of to reiterate, we focused on 4 roads based on what we've observed with cut-throughs between Lincoln and Lampeter. Those being Tennyson, Longfellow, Wiker, and Buttercup, as being the primary cut-through routes within the Bridgeport area. So we evaluated these and we came up with a host of solutions. Nothing very definitive for any given road, but kind of an a la carte type menu that can be used as these projects go through implementation and come to life. Being one would be just on-site, on-street parking. If the existing road widths warrant, you could do on-street parking, which naturally slows vehicles down. It's not going to be the solution for everywhere. There could be a place in time for that. Landscape medians are good traffic calming devices. Textured paved crosswalks, curb bump outs or neck downs, and raised intersection crosswalks are all good applications that would fit this area to help calm traffic and improve pedestrian safety within the streets. King Street within the study area was identified by survey participants as a high priority area for pedestrian connectivity and safety improvements. So as part of that, we looked at it a little more in detail and studied the adjacent neighborhood and determined possible sidewalk safety improvements for pedestrian, which will translate into vehicular traffic calming with the construction of sidewalk and curbs as well. So we looked at the primary connections being at the King Street Bridge as the highest priority. Number C. Yeah, this area, there's deteriorated sidewalk. There's a lot of pedestrian movement through here. It's a very important connection that we need to see come to life. And that was the highest priority identified by survey participants. There are other improvement areas, including King Street near Conestoga Drive, Rank Avenue, King Street near Riverside Drive, and then City Mill Road are also identified as important improvement areas to improve pedestrian mobility and safety. Next, we move on to the improvements proposed at Lincoln Highway. You can see here the existing conditions. It's almost resembles an airport runway with 4 lanes. 4 lanes, 3 are through lanes with a center left turn lane, large shoulders, very uncontrolled, very unsafe to try to cross this roadway as a pedestrian. We looked at a number of different alternatives. With the alternative of transforming the 4-lane roadway into a 3-lane roadway, essentially, two through lanes with a center left turn lane, incorporating concrete medians shown here with vegetation that would help with traffic calming, raised imprinted pavement markings for the crosswalks and for the center left turn lane to further enhance the traffic calming effect. A nice wide shoulder that can accommodate buggies. You'll see in the next slide could accommodate a future bike lane if that's determined as necessary. Also, the addition and road diet with the curb, new 6-foot sidewalk everywhere to pedestrian mobility. So it's quite a transformation looking at this picture versus this picture. I think it would be a significant improvement to the area. And moving on to the overall transportation improvements. The intersection of King, Pitney, Old Philadelphia Pike, Lincoln, and Lampeter has long been a source of congestion and headaches for pretty much everybody that lives within the area and trying to travel through the area. After considering numerous alternatives and gaining feedback, the steering committee and the project team has chosen the presented conceptual design to improve traffic flow and pedestrian access within the Bridgeport area. So to kind of just take a walk around the intersection, I'm naturally drawn to the Old Philadelphia Pike Road coming in from the northeast. What we will do is at the intersection of the Hack, we will widen and restripe the westbound direction to include left and right turn lanes from both directions and additional lanes, which then naturally naturally drive into the roundabout and traverse through the roundabout up to Pitney Road around the Wise Market shopping plaza. And then at Pitney Road, there would be a new signalized intersection, at which time you will travel, if you're trying to come through the Bridgeport area, travel down Pitney Road towards the main intersection with additional lanes. There's left turn lanes, additional right turn lanes, and through lanes. At the intersection itself, we are eliminating left turn lanes in the eastbound direction on King Street and the westbound direction on Lincoln Highway. The elimination of these major movements is what's providing the efficiency with the signal. Those movements are conflicting movements. If we can get rid of them, it improves the signal operation dramatically. So you can see there is additional lanes on King Street, additional lanes on Lampeter Road coming to the north, and significant amount of additional lanes on Lincoln Highway as you travel to the east. So generally with removing the King Street and the Lincoln Highway left turns, you will have to maybe travel a little more distance to make those movements. So if I'm coming east on King Street and I want to go north on Pitney, I got to go through the intersection up around Weiss and then travel north on Pitney from this new signalized intersection. So it may be a little bit farther, but overall you're going to save time because you're not sitting in a light at red light waiting to make a left turn. Plus it's safer. Yeah. So yeah, if you're traveling east on King Street, and if you want to turn and go up Pitney, under the current situation, you would make a left turn there. You'd probably have to sit in a long line and wait to make that left turn. Under this proposed condition, you would travel through the signalized intersection and make a left on Lincoln Highway where there's 2 left turn lanes, travel north through the roundabout, around the Weiss Market, and then you make a right-hand turn at Pitt. So it's a little longer distance, but you should have less resistance in the form of delay.
So one other
Yep.
example of maybe a westbound left.
Yep. So if you're traveling west on Lincoln Highway and you want to go to Lampeter, you actually have to turn right, same path through the roundabout to Pitney, make the left there, and then you come straight down through Pitney to Lampeter. Yeah, all the turning movements, including the roundabout, would be designed to accommodate truck traffic. So under the current conditions, the level of service, the previous level of service that we discussed at 53 seconds delay would reduce down to 32 seconds delay. So nearly cutting that in half. So it's a pretty significant improvement at the intersection.
The other thing that I'll highlight is that there's an opportunity not just for transportation improvements, but for creating opportunities for future private property investments for those who would want to invest along those streets, so that that walkability, the sidewalks, the pedestrian-oriented experience of being able to walk around the whole neighborhood and the commercial district can and should be enhanced through integrating sidewalks and crosswalks and different ways in which future land uses of commercial buildings or mixed-use buildings or other kinds of buildings could complement the transportation improvements that you see.
Yeah, one item I didn't hit on with the improvements is the sidewalk, and it's not very apparent at this scale. Maybe some of the viewers at home can see it a little better, but pretty much all of the new roadway that is shown has sidewalk illustrated on both sides with improved crossings at the roundabout and all the intersections. So it would create quite a network for pedestrian mobility through this area, which plays on Mark's point that he just made with the viability of getting to businesses and properties throughout the area. These are conceptual, very conceptual sketches. Yeah. Well, there's a process that would be had as part of the planning and project development of any solution that comes to fruition, and you would be involved in that. Yep. Yeah, and that's a much larger scale transportation improvement. Yeah. That,
We have other things. These are, I think there's a lot of future discussions that will need to occur on implementing these ideas. This is a conceptual framework for further study, looking at more detailed look at all the properties, all the sidewalks, all the access points. And so this is a transportation and land use study. It is not an engineering plan. And so there will be a public process to coincide with any future roadway improvements as this moves forward. And so this is a framework to solve a lot of complex dynamics, and a lot of individual property concerns will need to be a part of any future conversation. So I think part of the next slide here is transportation.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So as part of all the proposed conceptual improvements, with the increased access through the sidewalks with the entire Bridgeport area, provides convenient, safe access to the neighborhoods, businesses, and bus stops within the area. By expanding this connectivity along these corridors, bus stops, could then be spaced out more generously at locations, approximately 2 to 4 minute walk between bus stops. Bus shelters could be considered at these more centrally located stops, as illustrated on the plans. With 4 bus lines converging at the Bridgeport crossroads, a bus transit hub should be considered and studied further to promote greater connectivity and transfer between the routes. So that's really the point.
And then to shift back to the land use component of this overall plan, there are some overall recommendations for improving the zoning. And so you'll notice in the area that's shown in orange and red, that area that is within about a 10-minute walk from the Bridgeport Crossroads intersection, not on any land that's zoned for residential, but only on land that's zoned for commercial land uses. The recommendation is that there be a coordinated zoning approach where at the orange areas, at the sort of 5 to 10-minute walk from that center, that there would be a village mixed-use district where all of the municipalities in those areas would work collaboratively as a next step on how to create a village mixed-use district. And then as you get into that red area in the center, the village center would be a similar kind of encouragement of all of these images you see on the bottom, images you see on the top, that there be investment in civic spaces, investment in building types that are compatible with a walkable village, that there be sidewalks, street trees, landscape enhancements, so that Bridgeport is a place of green, not just a place of asphalt and parking. And so to create that overall transformation, we believe that a unified zoning approach at the Bridgeport Crossroads would be an excellent investment of time and energy, and where the municipalities that surround that intersection would work together on implementing these recommendations. So instead of having some areas where the setback for a building is 10 feet and next door it's 50 feet, that we would make sure that the standards are more unified and more have greater continuity. And so whether it addresses issues of building height or building coverage or impervious coverage, all of those things would be coordinated as a unified approach. And then as it relates to land use, many of the zoning ordinances and the permitted uses within this district are appropriate, but there are a few that are deserve further consideration. As we look at how our retail districts are changing, many of them are changing to be more service oriented, or where there's more personal services, or where there's more restaurants and dining, or where there are artisan businesses and specialty stores that are encouraged within these districts. And so looking hard at land uses that are allowed, and making sure that there's a unified district for the village and the village mixed-use district are strong recommendations of the plan. And so I'm going to then turn to Ryan to talk briefly about the implementation and phasing plan for how this moves forward. Ryan?
In order to implement the goals and objectives of the study, potential improvements are being recommended throughout the entire Bridgeport area. He illustrated this in the plan through a matrix that has every project really broken out into too much detail to drill down through with everyone today, but is organized in terms of project priority and what could be expected, like realistic goals as far as short-term, mid-term, or long-term type projects. Short-term being 1 to 3 years, mid-term would be a 2 to 6 year, and long-term would be some of the bigger projects, like 3 to 10 years. Really, it's set up for the municipalities to set the actual priorities, engage the community, and work through the implementation process, which will involve the county, most likely the Lancaster County MPO will be heavily involved with that, primarily because of the various funding sources that could and frankly will need to come into play as part of the implementation process. So, funding sources can vary greatly, and really working through the project development and implementing the higher priority, maybe the low hanging fruit initially, and with goals of getting to the larger, more impactful projects as funding permits and time permits.
Thank you, Ryan. We are very grateful that throughout this process, we have had over 800 different respondents to various surveys. We're grateful that we've had broad participation from lots of different neighborhood folks, property owners, municipal leaders, and certainly the county planning department. And so we are, so this is not an end, this is a plan that lays out a number of action items moving forward. We welcome, because we're in sort of a forum where we have a lot of both virtual as well as in person, we would encourage you, as you have comments and suggestions about the plan, just to sort of share info@bridgeportcrossroads.org. We would welcome your comments. And to view the full report, it's 95-page report. You're welcome to look at that in detail and it will be available within the next few days on all 5, the 4 municipal websites as well as the county website. And so it's been a privilege to work with so many good people to make this Bridgeport Crossroads vision and plan a reality. And I want to thank you all for all of your efforts to help guide and shape the recommendations that we've made here. So I'll turn it back to you, John and Tara, to wrap it up.
Thank you to Mark, Ryan, Steve, and Jacob, as well as your teams behind you at Dirk and Edson, at Town Planning Partners, and at HRG. Again, thank you for the public comment that we've gotten over the last 4 years that the study has been ongoing and that we've had public meetings for, as well as Mark said, the surveys and emails that have been out there. They've all provided guidance in moving the study forward. It's been a pleasure to work with Lancaster City, with Steve Campbell and Cindy McCormick, with Ben Weber at Lancaster Township, and Amanda Hickman at West Lampeter Township, along with Bob Beanie and Lori Alskog at Lancaster County Planning Department, to get this study to a completed phase. East Lampeter Township looks forward to working with our municipal neighbors as we move the Bridgeport Crossroads into the implementation phase. Thank you.
we've basically got an opportunity to plan for the redevelopment, the livability of Lancaster's original city footprint, in the next 16 to 20 years. And so that's a responsibility that we have, all of us, to future generations. If we do nothing, 2037 is going to come, and it can come in a way that is disconnected and disjointed, and we're suddenly having to scramble to make right what we didn't do, we didn't plan for future generations, where we can do that right now. East Lampeter Township is currently working on a $170 million plan for the streetscape of Lincoln Highway from Strasburg Pike to 896. Most people do not realize that we put that together, and we've got a major investment to make over the next 20 years. And so there are, two bookends here, Lincoln Highway and Bridgeport, that are going to touch a lot of people's lives that work and live in this space. And we need to be proactive and do that. So I appreciate it. Thank you, Tara, staff, Ralph. Thank you for everything. Dee, I see Barry over here from West Lampeter. I mean, there's just, a lot of people here from the surrounding community that have gotten involved, and we're going to need you to continue to be involved as we move forward. So thank you very much. Thanks, Tara. Appreciate it. All right. Thank you all very much for coming. Appreciate that. If I think it's lightening up a bit. About 15 minutes ago, I looked over at Dee Dee and she went, "Oh my gosh." So anyway, have a good evening. Thank you all.